I think especially with comedy, because when you're up there on stage, you're presenting who you are, and then...
Hello and welcome back to this week's episode of the TF Cast. I'm Willis.
Hey, Grum here. It is September 13th here in the solarium.
And I'm your host, G.M.A.C.C. Today we are so pleased to have the return of Dan Bacula on behalf of the Greater Mankato Area Comedy Coalition. We are starting up another year of open mic, and Dan, we'll kick it over to you to tell us what it's like at the open mic, what you're excited for, and what you've been up to since the last time you've been here.
Oh, man. Yeah, thanks for having me. It's always a pleasure to be in a solarium, especially this one. We had our first open mic back after the spring hibernation. Everybody kind of came back with plenty of enthusiasm, not too rusty. That was fun to see. Nobody kind of lost any step. We had enough non-performers come back as well. That was nice. So I'm looking forward to doing this through April now. That's exciting. That's kind of like a long-term, big picture thing. It's always a roller coaster, on weeks, off weeks, stuff like that. And then also coming back with the monthly shows. We're not doing one in September, but we're doing one in October with Mary Jo Pell, who is a cornerstone of Mystery Science Theater 3000. It's going to be cool to have her down. That's October 8th, if I have my calendar right, Sunday, October 8th. And then we're also, I think the biggest development is co-producing the Quick Wits comedy showcases with you guys. We definitely didn't talk about that last time because we hadn't started that. But that's been a huge development. And I think that probably has more visibility than the weekly comedy open mics or the Circle and monthly shows. So I'm excited about all that stuff. And that's pretty much all that's been going on, I think.
Yeah, I mean, that is the summary in brief. But you know how we like to go deep on things here. Well, actually, let's just catch up with you a little bit first. What was your time off like? Did you get some opportunity to write or do anything along those lines?
Oh, man, it was such a long summer. I think the primary thing for my summer was that my wife finished up school, so it was actually kind of good for me to not have my hands full with comedy stuff, so that I could be home and be around and support her through the end of that. So that's been a huge kind of like lifestyle change, which now, if anything, I have more time to like write and focus and think about comedy and that sort of thing. So I submitted to a couple festivals, and I get to participate in the Milwaukee Comedy Festival the first week of October. And that's like a cool credit. That's like a cool thing to have a picture about. But in reality, it's me driving to Milwaukee for free to do a hosting set and then maybe another 5-minute set.
What did you submit?
So I submitted, they might have asked for 2 videos, and one of them was the video from the first Quick Wits.
Cool.
And then I don't know what the other video would have been, but one of the reasons I wanted to get the Quick Wits going was very selfishly. I just have never had luck getting a good video of myself. And so I haven't had anything to submit to these festivals. But the combination of whatever 2 videos I sent, one of which being the Quick Wits video, worked. So that's awesome. A huge tally in the plus column. But I also reached out to a friend in Madison who runs a show, and I get to do 20 minutes in Madison, I think the 23rd of this month. And that's like more exciting because as a host, and this is something that we can kind of talk about now that you guys have a few comedy shows under your belts. Like the host's job is not to deliver anything memorable. They're supposed to like get in, do the job, get out of the way. Like you're supposed to not be remembered when you're hosting, which is a difficult thing for a comic to remember because they're thinking about what they're going to say so much. And I've messed it up so hard a couple times. Like,
Same.
Yeah, well, like going into host and, doing the mechanics, but then my material was like about genocide, and it's like that's shooting yourself. It's shooting the show in the foot.
Yeah.
Um,
I experienced that the first one you had me host. I don't think I took it seriously enough, like, at all.
oh,
Like, I just was like, I just gotta show up and do my usual 5 minutes and announce people. And then I just, like, did terrible because I wasn't ready for what it really was.
and that's another thing too. It's like you don't know what your first open mic set's going to feel like till you do it, and you don't know what your first showcase set's going to feel like until you do it. And so you might feel like it didn't go well, but I'm sure it did. I mean, obviously you got through it and you came back to do it again. Yeah. So a hosting set is like very, very different, and even a showcase set at a Milwaukee venue is different because it's like, well, I would like them to have me back someday, so I don't want to like swing for the fences and like epically fail, but I also don't want to go so soft, So it's whereas in Madison, where I know a lot of the people there, it's like, and that's something that with comedy, even like if you're starting out a longer set in a place you've never been to before, you want to communicate who you are to the people in the audience so they can kind of like know the spectrum in which you're going to be addressing stuff, and they can be kind of comfortable. You can establish expectations with like how you talk and how you move and your volume and all that stuff.
Sure. That's why all the Twin Cities comics start by insulting us, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
I also had the worst case scenario thing last Quick Wits where, since I was hosting, I literally prepared zero material because at Quick Wits the host is like literally just like a
Function.
hey, be quiet, here's the first person, like,
Yeah.
and then we had technical difficulties and I had to do like 5 minutes.
Off the top of your head.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
you pulled it off.
I have a recording of it, so I can be the judge of that.
You were saying about establishing yourself.
Oh yeah, when you're doing a set in front of people who you don't know and they don't know you, and I think that's one of the reasons comics walk into a room and deconstruct it or like say something about the town or the place is so that everybody's like on the same page. Mm-hmm. It's like we're all in the same room together. These are kind of my observations. And audiences love it when a touring person says something about their town. It's kind of like a callback. It's like it's just like a button a comic can press that's almost a guaranteed.
Sure.
Unless there have been horror stories of people like saying the wrong sports team or something like that, and then the audience turns on them. But the reason I'm excited about my set in Madison is because a healthy amount of those people remember me and I remember them. So it's like I can skip the part. I can skip that part. I can like, I'm not trying necessarily to impress them for the first time. I don't know a better way to say it, because I'm definitely trying to like impress them, but I don't need to like do it nicely. I don't know. I don't need to like dance around it. I don't need to be nice about it.
Yeah,
I
they
guess.
won't be like, oh, here he goes.
Yeah. No, they're gonna be like I can skip the pleasantries. Like you're seeing someone that you've known since like childhood. You can skip some of the formalities.
Yeah, I've even have experienced that in just like literally doing one open mic with someone and then showing up to a gig with that person, and all of a sudden it's like a whole different, like they literally interact with me completely differently, and it's not even like I crushed that set or anything. It was just like, even having seen me done it, they're like, okay.
Yeah, I think it's almost like pheromones. There's like a familiarity.
Yeah,
and I think especially with comedy, because when you're up there on stage, you're presenting who you are. And then when you come off stage, people are like, okay, I have an idea of this person. Mm-hmm. I have an idea of what to expect from
I've
this
also
person.
had the experience that any time a comic has asked for my phone number, they were the worst comic of the night.
Triple Balls is a media and event production company based in southern Minnesota. We specialize in multicam live streaming and sound and lighting for event productions. Contact us today to learn more or subscribe online to join our newsletter and stay up to date about events and things going on in the area. Thanks for tuning in. Back to your show.
Oh, actually, when I think back to when we had first met, so if no one knows the lore, we met on this podcast, and then we were like, we're going to go do comedy. And so then, basically, Zach and I ended up, doing comedy basically every week since then at your open mic, and have taken some other opportunities since then. But like I remember in one of the very early ones, there was just like a heckler, and there's no heckling at the mic.
Yeah.
And like I feel some of that like pheromone that you were just talking about in the way that you dealt with them, and because it is infuriating. Like if you don't like the jokes, you could just fucking sign up.
Right.
Like there's a sheet right there, and you could tell whatever joke you want to tell.
Right.
But like no one ever does. They want to.
Right.
They want to. They want to interrupt.
Yeah, they have a different relationship with what's happening.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that was that the one where I yelled at the guy?
Yeah, it was awesome.
Yeah.
That's so, and I even walked away from that thinking like that's so unlike me, but then I remembered like the several other times I've like lost my cool, and I'm like oh no, that is me. Like I'm not, that's not, I wasn't like no spirit had jumped into my body. I was just having a bad day, but yeah, that was really strange. And yeah, I mean, since you've gotten to know me since then, I hope that that's an outlier.
Oh no, actually, I like with the context now, I feel like it was appropriate. Like,
Sure.
Totally.
You're just like protecting the art form, because like it is that simple. Like someone's up there saying something that is almost certainly nerve-wracking. Like
Sure.
no matter like where you at, like when you're in the room for the first couple of times, like it's just like even coming back, you just have I haven't been on stage in a few months, and you just feel a little bit more nervous. So
Right.
you don't want to deal with some asshole in the audience making snide comments at you.
Well, and also Anne's one of the first people that showed up to your mic, so
Right.
she's like one of your comedy babies.
Yeah, she's and she's a long-term family friend too. Like
Yeah.
I've known her for a solid decade, and and she's one of the people who off the bat was bringing in material that was from like life experiences, and she was because my experiences in Madison are, it's usually college-age young white males, talking about vape pens and dating apps and boners and stuff.
Cool stuff.
And so like when I was so fortunate that the people who started coming off the bat had other things to talk about, and so her sets for a while were updates on her cancer diagnosis, and this guy didn't think that was funny, but he was already blackout drunk, and like what I was yelling at him wasn't going to make a difference. Really, Joe Tugas just taking him out of the room was much more appropriate. I wasn't going to yell him out of the room. You know what I mean?
I actually think it was really good though, because I think that everyone was like, "Oh shit, I'm not saying."
Oh yeah, yeah. And it's weird too, because there is this gray area where some people kind of mumble, but the people around them are like, "Hey, don't," or whatever.
Yeah.
Or a couple times there have been a couple bar regulars who go back there, and they're just naturally loud people, and it becomes kind of a joke that they can't.
Shut the fuck up.
Yeah. But it's because everybody else in the room, or so many people in the room, know them. It really goes with the tone of the room versus the person who's being disruptive.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it is, I don't know where else you would have, I guess everywhere, you would kind of have that vibe where if someone was being inappropriate, the people around them would kind of like
I've only had to
self-censor.
kick one person ever out of one of my shows. No, two. One for being violent, and one just for being a like heckler, like literally yelling stuff in between the band or during songs, and just like asking them to be quiet and stuff.
We when I was in a band, we played a show in a seemingly homeless person brought his dog in, and like everybody stopped and was like, you have to get that dog out of here. Like that dog is freaking out because this is a loud concert venue. I think it's good. I think it's a good litmus test that a community and a room and a vibe is kind of taking care of itself for the most part.
What has that vibe in Mankato been? I mean, there's certainly been an impact, and I think that you might be better to talk about it than, because for me it's an explosion. But like you have Madison experience, and like you've seen other comedy communities, and you bring people here from the cities and stuff like that. So like, what do you see developing here in Mankato, like as a result of the mic and around the mic? Because there's a whole lot more than just what's happened there.
Yeah, I mean, I feel really good that it's growing pretty organically. I think one thing I could do is kind of like over market it. I could call it a comedy night, and I could put that stupid ancient microphone on all the posters. Like I could market it. I could try to bring in as many people as possible. Like that could be my priority, but that's not my priority. Like I want to bring in people who are interested in it as opposed to just anybody. Cause I don't necessarily want it to appeal to everybody. Like cause it's never going to appeal to everybody. So it'd be asking people to come sit through a thing that they're not going to appreciate anyway. And so just me being consistent and me being sustainable, that's what I can do on my end. And then as people come to it, they have their own relationship. They come every 6 months or 3 months or every week or whatever it is. So I'm fine with building it slow and letting it be what it is, as opposed to trying to make it something it would never be. As far as, I think I'm kind of like riding on the back of the music scene, which developed such a strong sense of community. And also there's like a greater, Mankato and St. Peter together have a great support system for the arts. Yeah. And so, there are a lot of arts literate people around who are willing to come check out a comedy open mic.
Yeah.
So those things I think are kind of unique about Mankato. And if the people who started coming to the open mic hadn't, and it had been, college students, or it had been some other like a group of bikers that wanted to come up and do Andrew Dice Clay jokes, like I wouldn't have kept doing it, This is born out of selfishness or neediness or whatever. I needed to create an opportunity for myself, and I've been very fortunate that the community has, organically come up as a structure that I can sustain it.
Well, I think it's a little bigger than that now too, because now I feel like, like we've had some edgy comics come in a few times and then like tell their joke and then like, they like kind of like, they're like, oh, like, yeah, that didn't really like work out the best. And I think that, a couple didn't come back and then a couple just wrote better jokes.
Sure. Yeah. I was trying to write a preamble, and it's difficult to address like how to and how not to behave at a comedy open mic, because you want it to be open-ended so that people can get better, they can learn from their mistakes. And the preamble I came up with is like, if you don't like a joke, just don't laugh at it. Like that's all that we need to know, that either this isn't the audience for that joke, or you could do it better if you really want to say it, or maybe you don't need to say it at all.
Yeah, like we know when we're doing a bad draw. Well, most of us.
Yeah.
Yeah, do you ever, I guess it'd be easier just to ask, like, what are your thoughts, and like, how does it feel to be like just like the guy who finally like successfully started a comedy scene in Mankato? Or do you hate people saying that? Because like,
Because I'll take credit for anything.
Yeah. We can definitely
it's
say
funny.
Jake did it. That's
Yeah,
totally fine. But you got a bunch of comedy, like the pretty much the whole comedy scene in Mankato. If you ask them who got them into it, they'd probably say you.
Well, I appreciate that. I mean, it was a huge step forward when you guys came on board. You guys brought a lot of audience to it that wasn't coming to it at the time. And that kind of goes with other groups too, like Ann Fee and her colleagues from the Art Center and Joe Tugas and his, everybody who came also brought other people. My marketing, I'm not sure anybody has come in just from the marketing, and whether I like it or not, like the Circle Inns marketing that does call it a comedy night and does use a picture of that microphone, like that's also brought some people in. I think the one thing I've done is I just keep showing up and I keep offering the opportunity. And so I think the consistency and the sustainability, and Jenny should get a little credit for that too. She's the one who invited me to do it in that space and lets us have that space.
And it's brave. Jenny invited me into her bar and gave me a microphone and said, "Go ahead, talk about politics."
Yeah. She didn't know. She did and she didn't know what she was getting into.
Yeah.
But she has been incredibly supportive, and it really did turn out to be the best room for it, because trying to do it in a bigger room would make the audiences seem even smaller. Trying to do it in I don't think you could get much smaller than that room, but it's incredibly cozy and welcoming. The people who keep coming and keep wanting to do it, I definitely appreciate the gratitude they have for the opportunity, but they are also people who were comedy minded before I established it. You know what I mean? They are people who have enjoyed and thought about comedy for a long time. Zach, you for sure. I think Sergio too. Who's been a fixture since he started coming toward the end of last season, we'll call it. Brian and the people who have come in and who have come back, they just needed a place that was closer than the cities.
Yeah.
And so did I.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I know for a fact, like me, Jacob, Joe, and Abby, the list goes on. So. Yeah, have there been any weird things that come with that, like being the comedy guy in Mankato?
There are people who ask me. Well, I don't know. People who wonder why they aren't invited onto shows.
Oh.
And I don't know. I don't ever want to be in a position of being a manager again, because me interacting with people is it's very choppy water for me. And so I tend to reach out to other people who I think might have a better handle on how to approach the situation. And for a while I had a group text going with some other people in the community and bouncing ideas off of them, what would be a better graphic, or what would be a better strategy, or this is what I'm thinking about doing. What do you think? And that's been really helpful to have that small handful of people who kind of know the area better and who are higher functioning adults than I am.
Okay.
What's it been like with all the newbies coming in? You got a bunch of people making their comedy debuts.
Oh, I love
Watch some
debuts.
people.
It's such a gamble, and I think I could go back through all the sign-up sheets and I could make a list of the people who only came in a few times. And maybe that's validating for people where it's it's not joining a club. There's not a membership. There's no commitment. You can try for a few times and then bail, because there are people too who committed to coming every week, and then a couple of things happened. I think Michelle was like, "This ruined my life. I cannot have a single experience without thinking about how am I going to turn this into comedy."
Yep.
And that's that's a very real thing. And then something that surprised me, and we might have even talked about this last time. I don't think so though. In Madison, And in the cities, I'm sure if you're only going out one night a week, that's like nothing. That's like you're not even trying if you're only going out once a week. But in Mankato, the people that were coming in once a week were getting burnt out. And it's just a completely different culture. And it's also the people in Mankato are coming in every week with different material, whereas people in the cities will run the same 3-minute, 5-minute chunk for months.
Yeah, I always think that's weird. With the 2 times I've gone to the cities, there were like comedians at both, and it was weird to me that they ran it with they ran same material, no changes,
Yeah.
like literally no changes, even on stuff that didn't work, and it was like flabbergasting to me. I was like, you could have changed one word or a pause or something.
There's one guy I've seen 3 to 5 times now over the course of 2 years, and it's been the same bit every time, has been part of his set. And man, that just seems like such a slow gestation period.
Yeah.
But everybody works their own way. Sydney Stevens, who came down with Ira and John, I think the first time they were down here
I met her one of the nights. We did like 3 mics together.
She's been like the opposite. She has thrown herself into it like so completely that she's doing every stage she can, every show that she can, and she's developing so much material so fast. And so you can also do that. You know, you can have your life revolve around it and put all your energy into it. Or you can show up once a week to drink beer with your friends and like, here's my bit that might work this time.
I think for me and Jacob, I don't want to put words in his mouth, but I guess I know for me, the entire reason I like comedy right now is because it doesn't serve anyone else. If I don't show up to a band practice or don't practice my guitar, like there's other people that get screwed over by that.
Right.
In comedy, if like I basically just took a 4-month break, I've written like barely anything, but that's like why I like it. So
Sure.
it's it. But yeah, I could totally, especially if I didn't have the things going on I did. I'd probably already have moved out of Mankato for it, you know.
Oh, right.
But yeah, I totally am in that group that like once a week is about the most I can do with a summer break.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with that, and I don't know, it is just like a fun writing project.
Yeah.
I think that's the thing is like when it even like I would rather just not go or just go and not participate than like just say the same thing over and over again, because I just don't think jokes are that precious. I think basically everything's funny. And I shouldn't take myself so seriously all the time.
Well, and all the best people I watch, like, write jokes, but their jokes aren't, like, the reason people show up. You know, like, when you get really far down the line, like, the jokes get you in the door, and they get you there, but it's, like, really your personality that, like, will make you hold fast in that position. So it's really about like delivery, stage presence, and interaction at a certain point. Because even like the best joke writers in the world can't just get by on that usually.
Right.
And then there's also examples like Abby Dickut, who like she's like still developing like her style of jokes and like how she likes to write stuff. But like she could go up there and read oatmeal nutrition facts, and I'd probably like love it.
Yeah.
And I'd be jealous still.
Yeah, I'd be
like mad and jealous.
I'd be like laughing angrily the whole time.
Yeah. Yeah. She is a treasure.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think establishing a charisma, I think you're exactly right. Like, and that's any comedian who's a household name is a household name because they've articulated their eccentricities to such an extent that like it's both performative and authentic, like at the same time somehow.
I think it's why all of those people have like such successful podcasts, because people are like actually interested in them. I think a really good example of that is Theo Vaughn. He clearly, his personality is like cammed up and like stuff like that. But people will literally just listen to him talk to anyone.
Right.
And then they still also sell out his comedy shows where he's actually prepared and worked really hard on like a set.
Yeah. Yeah. I think an interesting thing about Mankato that I don't want to get too far away from is we were talking about like repeating material. And I think it was Joe Tugas that said to me like it is the same group of people coming to watch. every
Yeah.
time. So it's like, and you're talking about doing a disservice to other people. You know, if one of us repeats something, even inside 3 months, like the dozen people that come to watch are going to remember.
Yeah.
They're like, but they'll also be able to track, like, oh, she made that better this time.
Yeah.
Or, because I remember when Anne was going to do the first Quick Wits, and she was talking about she was going to do her mansplaining bit. But then when she went out, she prefaced it with like 2.5 minutes of brand new stuff that led into it.
Yeah.
And I was blown away. And then the mansplaining stuff was just as strong, if not stronger.
Yeah.
So I think we are responding to our community by not repeating ourselves too much and not taking ourselves too seriously.
Yeah. And it also adds value to the non-comic attendees.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. Because that's why in a bigger city you don't see a lot of repeat customers like at the same open mic. The Acme open mic, you'll probably see a lot of people coming out to watch, because it's such it's what do you call it? It's a booked thing, you know. It's like, and it's such a stacked lineup of people who have so much material to work from. It's not really an open mic.
Yeah, you do get on. First timers do get on, though.
Right.
And Topher used to go to just every Monday. He wouldn't.
Oh, wow.
He would just go.
Yeah, to watch.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's insane. I mean, you get on that first time, and they have like 2 or 3 slots for people who are doing it for their first time.
Yeah, and it's a 2 or 3. It's not a 5.
And then
which in my opinion is harder.
Yeah.
Honestly.
And then it's like, okay, well, when do I get to come back on? Well, after you've done like 3 years of open mics at other places, you can come back. But yeah, and that's the couple of other open mics I've been to in the cities. It's like the venue has to develop the following. They have to come there for the venue, not for the individual performers.
It's, in my experience, it was, and not clicks in like a necessarily negative sense, though there are some negative things that come along with that, like my experience of like really feeling left out the first times I had. And it was weird too, because like I said, even the second time I saw a comic, it was like I had established credibility regardless if I had done well or not.
Right.
Just by like them not, I don't know. There's like this general like clickiness of like, this guy's not part of our crew. We don't want him to come in and steal our gigs or make us laugh. But if that was my experience, it was like the one night I went, I saw like the same 2 cliques of comics at every mic I went to. And then when I did Monday Night Comedy Show, I saw like a clique of comics that isn't at the Moose open mic, but one of the comics did close. They do like a feature at their open mics, and Tommy something was the headliner at mine and the headliner there. But yeah, it seems very like that. Like the same cliques of people go to these, so then it's like just like kind of finding the group of people that you like, and then the venue too. Like, it seems like the host has a lot to do with it. It seems like a way more. Seems like a more scrutinized position when there's more mics. You know. Yeah,
the Chris Maddock, who is a veteran stand-up. He's got albums on stand-up records. Like very funny guy. He came down with Gabe Noah. Everybody loved him. He was the one who was also in a math rock band.
Yeah. He's great.
He started running an open mic at Comedy Club Underground, which is the kind of DIY but like very sought after venue in the cities. And his open mic sign up is filled up moments after he puts the sheet down. And it's like, because he's such a reputable comic, like people want to do his mic, and it's a reputable venue too. But like, there was a group of people booking comedy at Sisyphus Brewing long before the pandemic, and it established such a reputation that the brewery built their room into a comedy space. But it was by virtue of the people who were running it. So yeah, it all plays. I remember the open mic that I went to in Madison when I started going every week. The guy who ran that, his tone worked so well, and it was a mic where everybody who signed up got to go up, so it could be like 3-4 hours. Like, it was brutal, but he would acknowledge it, and he would like remind people to get off their phones, like you have to pay attention to each other, stuff like that. So a very gentle kind of thing. But yeah, clicks too, which also goes back to like doing it for yourself. When I decided I was going to do it every week, I'm going to be like, it doesn't matter. I don't need to talk to anybody. I'm just going to go in. I'm going to do this thing for 3 minutes. Whatever else happens, happens. And it was weeks before anybody else would talk to me. One, because I was so awful. But two, it was like, is this guy really going to stick around? Like, should we even bother getting to know him? Like, what's going to happen here? But it was because they started to get to know what my parameters were and like what they could expect from me, so that they were familiar. It's weird because comedy is so much about subverting expectations, but you also need to be able to communicate what people can expect from you. Like, you need to establish your methodology of subversion, and that's how they're comfortable.
Has your style evolved a lot? Like, what were your early bits like?
Yeah, I think I would try anything, because I was coming up with new stuff every week because I started doing comedy right around the time of the Madison competition, and so everybody was like polishing up their 3 minutes. So the first 5 mics I went to, everybody was doing the same stuff, and it just bothered me so much. I decided I was going to write new stuff every week. So I would just burn through everything, come up with something else. And I don't know. And I wasn't paying attention to what other people were doing, like content-wise, like what they were talking about. And so I was out of left field, I think, as far as they were concerned. The bits I can remember aren't ones that I want to talk about.
I always think it's interesting when I watch comedians nowadays. I don't watch them the same way at all. I'm more watching like how because like I'm not going to steal their content.
Right.
So it's more about like how are they carrying themselves? How are they moving into it? How are they structuring the punchlines? That was one. I just watched Shane Gillis's new special. I know people are touch and go with him, but it's really interesting how he does it, because it literally feels like you're like he does it like really conversational almost. He almost just seems like the funny guy at the party or the bar more than
Right.
he seems like he's doing like a stand-up set, where I would say like John Mulaney's like the opposite of that.
Yeah,
John Mulaney.
yeah.
You can really, really tell like he is specifically doing like his material, and it's interesting how I don't pay attention to people's content really either, except for like wanting to laugh.
Sure.
When I'm watching it like analytically, it's more like, how are you carrying yourself? How are you moving from one thing to another? When are you deciding to drop something? When are you deciding to like press farther into something? Repetition is also really interesting. A thing that I noticed a lot more recently. A lot of my favorite comedians like use repetition as a way to like push something, even sometimes that doesn't get a laugh. You say it like 3 times, all of a sudden everyone's like, he said it again. You know? Yeah, it's interesting. Kill Tony has been really eye-opening for that, because when you watch, like I've probably seen 400 people, 500 people do 1 minute sets now, and it's like really telling what works and what doesn't in that style.
Yeah, Sydney Stevens is going to be on Kill Tony. She got to be on a Kill Tony. She went to visit a friend in Austin and
Awesome.
ended up, so that'll be fun to watch.
Both times I went and did open mics, she was at all of them.
Yeah, she was
also
intense.
really nice. She was the only one besides Lahiru and John, like people I had worked with. She was the only person out of everyone who came up and talked to me, except this one really drunk comic who tried really hard to get my phone number.
Yeah, nice. The first person to talk to me in Madison later told me he only talked to me because he thought I was attractive.
Love it.
Yeah. He's like, that's the only I was so bored when I found out you were straight.
That's a really good line.
Yeah, he's full of good lines. That guy's great. Yeah, he's got some great bits that are unmentionable. Yeah, what were we talking about?
Oh, I was just talking. You were saying how you don't really
watching
listen
comics.
to content of
Yeah.
people, and I was like, yeah, I don't really either.
Wendy, my wife, mentioned she knows about herself that she prefers comedy that's about stuff that actually happens. She doesn't like it when it's about ideas. So like a good example was Dan Cummins, who has this great podcast called Time Suck. His new special is all about ideas. So he's always talking about, like, he's deconstructing theories of how society operates. And it's funny, but it's just not like as relevant. And so that's something that I think about when I'm listening to people and watching the new Michelle Wolf special. I thought she did a great job of giving like interpersonal anecdotes that illustrate larger societal concerns.
Yeah.
But I've been thinking about her special a lot. And another thing she does, like, to be able to achieve that, she has to work with generalizations. So she's talking about, she has a chunk about lesbians, she has a chunk about gay guys, she has many chunks about white women. And it's like, you have, for what she's doing to work, she has to leave it at such a giant generalization, and then you risk it appearing like you're attacking people that you're not really attacking, because really you're attacking a personality within that group, but it seems like you're attacking the whole group.
Yeah.
And so that's something that's interesting, like, that I would pick apart when I'm watching that kind of thing. And then there's this other guy, Wendy and I watched, Ali Sadiq, who's just like, you just don't know how he does it. Like the ebb and flow of his storytelling is so natural, but how he builds the laughs out of it, it's all of those things, all of the things that he's doing working in tandem, like intonation and rhythm and body language, and he figured out his way to do it, and probably mostly just by getting up and doing it, you know.
Yeah. Another really cool thing to watch if you want to like take this like kind of analytical approach to watching comedy, stand up on the spot is a thing Jeremiah Watkins does, where you have to you do like improv stand up based on and I think while it's not like something I'm really into, like, oh, I want to do that, it is really interesting how quickly you can see how the content is almost secondary,
right?
And it's more about like your ability to like work the crowd, and like some of the really, really funny jokes on there aren't even like jokes,
right?
They're like someone just doing a good job of like connecting something really dumb, and you're more laughing at like this person rather than like the joke they're telling,
right?
And so like people like Shane Gillis do really, really well on that because they come off so conversational, and a lot of like top tier joke writers. Miz was on there recently. I can't remember his last name.
Jabroni.
And
Maz Jabroni.
I know he's a pretty good joke writer, but he like totally floundered. He's definitely not one of my favorites, but I know he's like a TV writer and like stuff like that.
Yeah.
And he totally floundered. And then like I've seen comedians I've never heard of just like crush these like AAA comedians there.
Yeah, Stephen Wright would have a hard time at one of those.
Yeah.
I've done a couple, like, you know, low rent versions of those, and it went really well. I had fun. The audience had fun, but I like tend to overwrite. I tend to like write every word and edit. Like, I have like an 11-page typed out, printed out draft of what I want to do in Madison, and I'm going through it, like cutting and pasting and rearranging, and I've had success with that. But it's also like and something like I wasn't preparing much for the open mics before the hiatus. I was going up and I was doing kind of like a middle, like I've kind of prepared but kind of not. And so like I wonder if I let myself be open enough to like just go up and just like see what happens. Like like how that would pay off, or if it could pay off, or if that's a skill set worth developing or exploring.
Yeah, I've never bombed doing it.
Right.
I've actually only bombed with written material.
Yeah, and well, again, you're coming at it with such a strong sense of who you are already, and I think a lot of like I nothing but doubt myself, and so like if I come out and maybe that's the thing that I put forward, that's the thing that I can communicate the most clearly to people, and that's the thing that'll like resonate with people.
Yeah, well, your comedy's definitely more thoughtful than mine. So is Jacob's in the like dissection aspect of it.
Definitely. I write things down to make sure that they make sense. Like if I write the whole thing down, I don't need to recite what I wrote, but I know if I write it, like, is this a coherent idea? Does it have a middle and an end? Like, is there spaces for these things? But I don't think what I end up going up to say is it's like 80% of that maybe.
Sure.
Yeah. All of my comedy notes are like bulleted, basically. Well, and they aren't even actually bulleted. That's how unorganized I am. But it's just like ideas and then things that fit in that idea. But then I recite it into my phone and watch it. Oh. And that's how I like to practice.
Oh, yeah. Well, that's I think it's nice that the three of us can kind of like illustrate how our processes are different and how our performances are also different. I think that'd probably be a good takeaway for anybody listening or watching.
Yeah.
But as far as like you guys having started in Mankato, what have your experiences been like? Like what did you think was going to happen versus what actually happened? And has there been value you anticipated and then unanticipated values?
Sure. For my bit, I didn't have a whole lot of. I had no expectations coming in. I went in to support Zach because he wanted to, and I was like, "Yo, he can do it." I mean, obviously, I could do it. Like,
I like how you say support, and then you're like, "If that dummy could do it, I got it."
Well, yeah,
Like any supportive friend.
Yeah. But from there, like it was gratifying and fun, and like I found it to be like an activity that was so like it was a really good outlet for a lot of like the things that kind of just get like kicked around in my head. And I do enjoy writing, so it gave me an opportunity to format something that I could easily do. And my expectations from comedy is to kind of like develop part of who I am as I have a lot of output through the work that I do.
Sure.
Like one day I would like to be part of a larger output of Triple Falls. So determining who you are as a personality and writing stuff and things like that. That's what I really want, is to become better at public speaking.
Yep.
And I do believe that doing just a little bit of comedy has really helped me think about how people respond to what I say and how to say it to people.
Yeah.
So I think it's been really powerful for that, and I enjoy that, and I also have a good time.
Yeah.
Like I get to walk into the room like,
I'm one of the guys.
yeah, it's the Toog. Yeah, that's it for me.
For me, it's almost slightly opposite. I'm really, really, really bad at public speaking. And just on stage in general. When I first started playing music, I would like literally shake with my guitar like this. And so like I was really, really scared. And then I think I also have like a bit more of pent up pressure on myself just because of being such a big comedy fan. And so the immediate thing was like I thought I was going to do really poorly. Honestly, I thought I was just going to like bomb for like 6 mics in a row and then maybe get a good laugh on the 7th one. So that was really heartening that like even my very first set, like obviously there were bad parts of it. And especially my body language, when I watched it, it's like cringy to watch my body language specifically. But yeah, so the immediate was just like it was a huge confidence boost. Like just in everything I did, it made me better at like even little things like talk, like how Jacob said, like when I talked, I'm now a band leader, which is something I've never been before. And even little things like that were easier because of my experience in comedy of like how to talk to these people, how to talk to the crowd, how to like most Onion Bun shows in the past were literally me just like cracking a dumb joke and then playing a song. And so it taught me a lot about like performance or entertainment rather than performance in a lot of ways. And yeah, just a huge confidence booster just across the board. Almost in a dangerous way where like the weeks where I was doing poorly, it like affected that side of my confidence too.
Oh yeah.
Like,
oh yeah.
Like the whole week I'm off. And but without getting too existential about it, comedy's just been important to me my whole life. Like my grandpa was my favorite person. He always made me laugh and it always had a strong effect on me how important that was. And I think I told you this. I think I said this on the podcast already, but like I had insomnia as a kid, and I can't even tell you how many times I watched the comedy specials that were on like the Charter on demand thing, and there
Right.
was only like 12 of them.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, so it was really, 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 really powerful for me personally.
Yeah. Well, good. Yeah.
I want to hop in quick and say we got our timeline approaching quickly here.
Oh yeah.
We got just a couple more minutes to chat it out. It's 2:20. I don't know when you gotta wrap
Yeah.
by.
Well, where can we find you and stuff? And what would
sure.
you like people to know about Dan Bacula / G.M.A.C.C?
Oh yeah, G.M.A.C.C, G.M.A.C.C, Greater Mankato Area Comedy Coalition. I wanted it to sound like an insurance company and succeeded, because it's another thing.
The branding kind of looks like it too.
Yeah. It's been to my own detriment because nobody wants to type that into their phone or look for it. But I don't know. I thought it was like that's my humor though too, is that everybody else is trying to come up with some like snappy, jokey, funny, like Comic Sans kind of like, I need them to know this is a comedy show, so I'm going to call it the same thing everybody else calls it, and I'm going to use the same graphic everybody else uses. It's like that's not who I'm going for. That's not what I'm trying to do. And enough people have found it despite my insurance company name. But yeah, so Greater Mankato Area Comedy Coalition on Facebook and Instagram. Circle in most Sundays. We have comedy. The schedule of the events, they're all on Facebook. I mean, it's all. I put up posters. It's impossible to reach everybody. Like you were telling a story about how someone pitched Triple Falls to you.
Yeah.
And it's like, even the people who are interested, unless they're on the same platforms, unless they're inside the same algorithm, it's like, and we had the guy, the student, came here, who was at the last open mic. He didn't know about it until he was here, and he had to ask around. So it's impossible to be everywhere.
Yeah. And where do I go if I want to learn about your comedy?
Same thing, Dan Bacula on Facebook. I'm only telling you guys that I am also on Bandcamp.
Whoa.
And I also, another stupid thing I did when I started to hold myself accountable is I posted a video of my set after every set. And so I had all of these collected. And I'm like, what am I going to do with all these? So I spliced them into 3 albums of open mic sets or performance sets. And so there are 3 albums of material of my first 3 years of doing comedy.
Love it.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
It's something, man.
For somebody who made it this far and wants to deep dive further, you can catch it
Oh
all.
God, yeah, I suppose you can. That might come back to bite me more than anything else.
Yeah, so that's getting deleted, but the rest is all still true.
Yeah,
Awesome. Well, thanks. You're the best.
thanks so much for having me. You guys are the best.